it does say the stream is live.
Bonjour, bienvenue, welcome once again to another Property Matters. Unfortunately, due to power failure at my end, I'm having to do this stuff. So I hope you can hear me. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me?
We're not doing so well, actually. It seems to be one of those mornings or afternoons. We have power failures here, there, and all over the place. Both Joe and Gareth have power failures. I'm stuck here. Well, I say stuck here temporarily only because I have to go whizzing off to the hospital very, very shortly. However, whilst we're waiting for Gareth to sort of get back in touch with us all, I perhaps want to introduce. First of all, we've got Joe joining us, who hasn't actually joined us before on Property Matters. She has, however, been sort of working with me for some time now, so it's good. It's good to welcome Joe on board. And what we're speaking about is New Build Britain was our topic, quantity over quality. It's something that sort of Joe brought up a couple of weeks ago, which is a lovely, lovely contrast to what happened tail end of last week when we had two of our colleagues on the call speaking about the challenge with remediation work which needed doing. And this was way sort of after all these challenges, one of them was that because of the council, they couldn't get the proper remediation work sort of done. The other one was relative to a property that Ben had bought, and he couldn't get that sort of remediated, and everybody's trying to squash him for harassment. Now, Joe brings us some refreshing news because she's here.
We could deal with refreshing news. We could definitely deal with that.
No, she's here about that. She's here to speak us about new build properties. If we think that they have some issues, and they do indeed have some serious issues with those properties with cladding, it is infamous, really, what is happening on the new build sector. Is it quantity?
Do give us some good news, please, Joe.
I don't think there's any good news, Gareth, with new builds at all, really, to be honest. A lot of people that I know have had major issues. Moving into a new build sounds fantastic and they look lovely. And, you know, you sort of think, oh, shiny, all new and everything. But a lot of things aren't connected properly or don't run how they should. Windows aren't fitted properly. There's drafts. There's all sorts, you know, there's so many complaints that have come up with new builds that, well, personally, I wouldn't go for a new build just because you don't get the space like you do in an older property. But that aside, a lot of properties don't have the drainage fitted properly, don't have all the pipes done properly. And they sign it off, and it's scary because somebody I know had a boiler that sort of leaked in their garage that had all their stuff in there, and they didn't know what the problem was, and it was because the pipes weren't connected and it just leaked fully all in the garage. So they're not as great as we might think they are, or they might look lovely, but I think you need to look a little bit further under the surface to make sure what's going on, really.
So are you saying that new build it's skin deep? It looks pretty. It's got all that beautiful brick cladding. It looks tidy and clean. Yes. But beneath the surface, now Hamish, we talked about this before. The moment, and this is going back to our cladding matters exploits. The moment you take the cladding off, you suddenly realise that underneath it, there's a whole world of mystery, isn't there, Hamish?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, one of the things is as well, an awful lot of new build is bought off maps or off plan. So you see the plan of the property, then you actually sort of think, oh, we will move in. And one of our colleagues, Michelle Carr, who actually sort of joined us from time to time, a series of properties that she's actually responsible for because she's a chair of the sort of residence committee there. But in her property, she said, hang on my plan, there was a window there. And this follows up from what Joe has just said, actually, because what they turned around, the builders turned around and said, oh, well, our property's too close to the next door neighbours, so there there's no point in putting a window there because relative to the size, all squashed in. What's the point in putting a window when all you see is the brickwork from your next door neighbours, which was not intended according to the plan? But it doesn't rest there. I mean, Joe knows a website that I haven't had the opportunity to look at it yet, but Joe keeps an eye on the website because of the, I was going to say atrocities. It's not exactly that bad, but it's getting on for it. With a serious neglect on behalf of builders. And they're obviously it's going to be subcontractors as well that they actually put in there. But
what website
is not checked fully.
Well, they're actually on TikTok. There's a couple of I'll have to give you the details because I haven't got it to hand, but there's a couple of people on TikTok that do sort of like go and check new properties. If you've bought a new property and think there's a few issues, they will go round and assess the whole thing. And it's actually quite scary, the videos they take, because some walls aren't straight, which I don't actually know how that happens when you're building something. But anyway, and things aren't connected. Toilets move back and forth. I think somebody on one of the videos, they ran the they ran the toilet, they flushed the toilet, and it was going through the sink. So, and then the shower wasn't working as well because it wasn't all connected, and the flues weren't connected properly, and there was beams that weren't sort of secure properly. It was actually very scary, but they're bringing to light a lot of what the issues are, and I think it makes people aware of these new builds and what you should be looking at before you buy, really, to be honest. But they get it signed off, and I don't know how it gets signed off. Whether it's just we need to build as many properties.
That's the bit that worries me. That's the bit that worries me. Hamish, in a world where we rely upon expertise of specialists like yourself, it worries me when you're spending what is largely the single largest expense in one's lifetime on a piece of real estate with a home on it, a dwelling of some sort, that has been signed off as safe, signed off as workable, and yet here we are. This feels to be completely wrong.
Well, the strange thing is, and I mean, Michelle would be a fine one with this because she's an expert there out in the field. What it costs these companies after the event is horrendous compared to what it would be if they could put it right in the first place, or hadn't put it up with sort of neglect, hadn't rushed their way through it. All of these subcontractors are supposedly qualified, experienced, or one would hope them to be, and there would be somebody checking it off. In the good old days, I say the good old days, the council were responsible for an awful lot of house builds. Right. And their clerk of works would actually sort of go around. Now, I'm sure they would miss things from time to time. We have building control these days, and whether they just sat down having a cup of coffee a lot of the time, which we found to be the case when the sort of cladding issues have actually sort of repeated themselves, because we still have those fire doors in Greenwich, which unfortunately the Greenwich Council can't see they are missing, only because they never step foot in the blooming place, do they? So
they are ethereal fire doors that only appear as mist. And the problem is, they've not been in place for how many years? Many years, and people still can't see that it's wrong that they're not there. And that's just one of many, right?
I think this was one of Ben's challenges too. I think his property was 10 years old when he moved in, but the building defects had never been remedied. And of course, trying to get them there's certainly cover. I can't remember what it is. I don't know if you've looked into it at all. Is it sort of something like 2 years, Joe? Or is it something you're not too sure of? I think people need to respond within 2 years. Here's Ben, of course. He's inherited or bought a property, but the original owners obviously haven't sort of checked it out. I don't know whether they might have been council owners. They could have been anything. One never knows these days. But what made his much more complicated, it was shared ownership, which means the council would be retaining, or the housing association would be retaining part responsibility, or They should have been retaining part responsibility. So you would have expected them to have checked this whole thing out before they passed it over to Ben, but obviously they didn't. But of course, one would not necessarily expect, one would not be surprised that after use certain things might go wrong. But these were building defects from the start, which is really what the items that Joe's been speaking about.
Yeah, I mean, it does appear to me that there should be some sort of process, even if you are a number of years after the fact, that if the defects were inherent in the first building, that the original builder should go back. But Hamish, there's no legal recourse to make that happen, is there?
There would appear not. And I mean, Ben has spent an awful lot of money and had to put up with a tremendous amount of harassment and threats and goodness knows what else. To actually sort of get virtually sort of nowhere in trying to resolve this sort of whole issue that he's sort of about. We'll find it. We'll catch up with him in due course and see what the actual status is. But that's a little bit later on. I think this is a warning to everybody. And this is one of the great things, and we'll get back to Joe in a moment. But one of the most important things for people to do is before you accept responsibility for that property, from the builder, developer who you're buying it from, make sure you check it out thoroughly.
I'd agree. The thing is, it's like when you buy a car, normally you try and get the AA to go out and check it out or something. So you know that it's like if it's a used car or whatever. We need the same thing because so many people buy these properties thinking that they are the bee's knees. They are fitted with everything they should be, which they, as we said, they are lovely. But like, cookers aren't fitted properly, they're not secure, and if you're a new buyer or a new home buyer, you're not going to know what you're supposed to be looking at because you're not in the building trade, you're not any of that. But we need to make it aware so that you have a check that you can go round and actually then go back to the developer to say, well, this isn't right, because as you've just said, I can imagine that they'll go past, and if you don't report it quick enough, they'll just go, well, you bought it, that's your problem now, which I don't think is right, not when you're buying a new build.
I think
Sorry, you were saying, Hamish.
Well, 100%, because this is the big struggle as well. With a car, you have it's rather ludicrous. I mean, okay, cars are costing you a darn sight more than they used to, but even so, when you buy them, if they has a defect, it's the responsibility of the seller of that car, who ultimately will gain whatever is necessary from the original builder of the car, whatever is required to, and it's automatically done. There's no quibbling about it. It gets done. It gets fixed, or it should get fixed. We do hear some struggles about engines which keep going wrong for forevermore once they start going wrong when they're bought, but they're much a rarity as to things going wrong. But in order to get your car fixed, it's so much easier. You can go back to the car, if you like the car manufacturer, the car builder, and obviously who you bought the car from, the new vehicle from, would actually sort all of that out for you. Whereas with a house, it seems to be, it's not just the fact that things are going wrong from what I sort of feel is the case. It's the length of time they get to be, it takes to get them repaired. So the people that are moving into these properties, there was a fine example we heard from Michelle when she was speaking about it. So I think there was something, it wasn't a high number of houses within the development. It was 25 to 35, something of that ilk. And what they'd done, they put the wrong cookers in, every single one of them. And it wasn't until Michelle complained about it and said, hey, hang on, what they'd actually done. And again, how would you check this out? How would you know to check this? What they'd done, it was a Bosch, and we know Bosch quality. And they put it in there, and one would have thought, with Bosch quality, wow, we're onto a winner here. Unfortunately, what they didn't say, these particular cookers were designed for students' flats, so you couldn't have all of the rings on at the same time. You're either two at the front or two at the back, but you couldn't have all four of them on, and they put all of them into every single property, so they all had to come out. But how would you know to check that?
You wouldn't.
If you were just sort of buying something.
Can I quickly include a comment from Zara, a friend of the show? There's a very basic checklist on the LABC website, not ideal for buyers who should get really a snagging surveyor. Any thoughts?
I'm not familiar with that, but we've heard about it. We should have got Zara on, because she's quite right. There is, and in fact, these guys, aren't they? The ones who are reporting on those particular sort of platforms. I can't remember where it was you said that they were actually. Where was it, Joe, the information they come out with?
They're on TikTok, but I'm sure I haven't looked at them fully, but I'm sure they've got a website somewhere that you can log on to. But you can book them, and they'll come out and have a look at your property just to check that everything's up to standards. But
and I would say do grab that basic checklist from the LABC website, because at the very least, at least you're forearmed. Thank you very much, everyone. Hamish, would you care to wrap up for today?
Well, yes, because I've got to get rushing off. Hopefully for some good news. Unlike sort of some of our poor souls who are moving into these properties, hoping to find everything to be fit and well, only to find, as we found out, that it's not necessarily the case. The trouble is, it happens all too often.
Right.
There was when I worked in engineering, automotive engineering, and we were buying components and everything else in, and then they were going into the cars. My particular aspect of my sort of buying procedure was to actually work with clients to get 0 defects. And in fact, if we got incredibly low, we would get less than 0. We'd get 0.01% and stuff of that particular sort of nature. Now, it's not like that with properties. There's usually something that needs sorting on them. But the sad thing is, it really is buyer beware doubly when you're buying a new property. That advice from Zara that she just sort of popped through there, alongside with Joe mentioned about take a look on TikTok and see if you can actually find out where these people are. There are ways, but do check before you move.
Joe, if you could put those in the follow-up comments to the stream, and thank you all for watching. Power failures notwithstanding, next week and by tomorrow, I believe, normal service will resume. Remember, we have 3 more property podcasts coming up. That's Ipsa Kind of Magic tomorrow, which should be very, very good fun. Always enjoy those. That's at 1 p.m. We've got on Thursday we've got Property Quorum, and on Friday Cladding Matters. And look forward to seeing you all there. Until next time, please keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and look after your mental health. Bye-bye now.